And we're back for another episode of This Is My Architecture here in Singapore. And today I'm joined by Inian from Dexecure. G'day.
Hello, how are you?
Fantastic. So who is Dexecure and what do you do?
Dexecure helps companies increase their conversion rate by speeding up their websites. Amazon released a study which showed that when the load time of their website went up by just 100 milliseconds, they lost $1.6 billion in revenue. Similar studies have shown how if your site takes more than just 3 seconds to load, 53% of your users leave. That's where Dexecure comes in. We help companies optimize their website with very minimal integration effort.
Fantastic. And certainly, as we see more and more customers here in Southeast Asia and beyond, bringing more of their businesses online, that is becoming even more important.
We are seeing the same thing as well.
Absolutely. So I see one of our favorite services here being CloudFront, but you're going to take us on a little bit of a different journey with what you do with CloudFront. So tell us about that user experience.
Right. So we want to personalize content for depending on different users, where they are coming from, and use CloudFront to deliver that experience. So let me just walk you through what one of our customers sees when they sign up to Dexecure. We provision a separate instance of CloudFront for every customer who signs up. And for every user, they hit the nearest, when they visit the site, they hit the nearest endpoint of CloudFront, which is then backed by an elastic load balancer, which has a whole auto-scaling group of EC2 instances that we call the invoker. The job of this invoker is to manage the state and orchestrate the entire optimization process. For example, if an asset is already optimized, it checks DynamoDB to see if the asset is already optimized, and if it is, then we directly return the asset from S3 and it gets cached back onto CloudFront.
So just like CloudFront, lots of low latency interaction going on here. So I see we've got a laptop, a tablet and a mobile. How do you know which device the user's coming in from?
Okay, so what Dexecure does is that it uses a lot of headers that get sent from the user's location to CloudFront. So using different APIs like client hints and different headers, we are able to accurately determine what's the device the user is on, what's his screen size, what's his location, what's his bandwidth, for example. And using this, we are able to customize different resources that get sent to the browser. For example, we optimize their JavaScript, CSS, images, fonts, basically anything that the browser gets from the server. Dexecure optimizes it based on these different factors that we talk about.
Wow, so you really bring a lot more intelligence around the latency, the bandwidth that's actually available, the actual device resolution. So that really goes in a lot more deeper. So I see Lambda down there at the bottom. I'm itching to find out what you do with that.
Yeah, so Lambda is where the heavyweight processing of all the optimization happens. Actually, before this current architecture, the processing was done by these EC2 instances, but that didn't scale very well for us. We had an incredibly bursty workload. So for example, if a page has 50 resources on its page, which is very typical of a normal web page these days, when a new page is uploaded to our client's website, these 50 requests comes at the same time to our EC2 instances. And say if each resource takes like 30 seconds to optimize, that's a lot of processing power that we need in a moment's notice. And that's just for one page, right? We have to scale to millions of pages of our users, and this architecture wasn't scaling that well. Which is where Lambda came into the picture, where we were easily able to decouple the computation and the orchestration process. And Lambda now does the heavyweight computation of optimizing the different resources based on different factors that we talked about, and EC2 just manages the flow of the entire process.
So imagine you've got customers that are, streaming sporting events or having sales for their online stores. So taking away a lot of even the intelligence that you needed to keep your auto scaling group was all taken away because of Lambda.
Yep, the infrastructure is managed for us. The cost is super effective because when we are not processing anything, we don't have a fleet of EC2 instances with huge processing power just sitting there doing nothing. The auto scaling up and down is super useful for us. We don't need to manage the infrastructure, and the cost also has reduced when we shifted to the Lambda architecture.
Fantastic. So what next?
So we want to move to a completely serverless architecture. The only part which is managed by us and that we think can be replaced by a better service that AWS provides is this invoker fleet. Using AWS step functions, we would be able to abstract away the scheduling logic completely and make it a completely serverless architecture. And also, we are also looking at using Lambda at edge to carry out more of the personalization right at the edge, closer to where the user is. And I think that will make us a better product too.
Fantastic. Well, it looks like you've managed to put CloudFront on steroids.
Exactly.
Fantastic. Well, thank you for sharing your architecture with us today.
My pleasure.
And thank you for joining us on This Is My Architecture.